We spent 4 days in Libya in 2025 and felt safer than some parts of Paris or Frankfurt. Every travel advisory on the planet still says the same thing: do not travel. Mainstream media still use the same old stock images from over a decade ago, but the reality we found was completely different. And while it isn't the only country with Roman ruins and Ottoman souks, it's the only one where you can have them completely to yourself. So our trip started at the Arch of Marcus Aurelius in Tripoli, Libya's capital. Harking back to when the city was a Roman settlement called Oea, this arch is the only structure to survive. It was built to honor Emperor Marcus Aurelius and his brother, and was the gateway to the Medina, also known as Tripoli's Old City and a UNESCO heritage site. This is a maze of historic lanes with a mix of Ottoman, Italian, and local architecture. Unlike busier cities, Tripoli's Medina feels raw and worn around the edges. The best part is practically free of tourists. If you pay attention as you walk around, you'll spot marble columns here and there. A good example is the Naqa Mosque from the 9th century, the oldest in Libya. At first it looks like a regular old building, but once you step inside, you notice something unusual. It's using Roman columns that were recycled for Tripoli's ancient past. We then made our way to Tripoli's famous French alley. The name comes from the French consulate that stood here for more than 200 years. Today, the space is a cultural center named after a Libyan historian. Across the Medina, you'll find hundreds of Ottoman courtyard houses built from the 1600s to the early 1900s. Each one centers on an open courtyard with rooms arranged around it. We visited the House of Karamanli, which belonged to the family who ruled Libya from 1711 to 1835. Featuring Islamic design details, it still has its original tilework and ceilings, and serves as a small museum with clothing and furniture from that period. The thing is, many of these old homes look abandoned from the street. You would think nothing is happening inside, but a few of them has been turned into new spaces, like Eskender Arts House, which is now a gallery for Libyan artists. We also grabbed a good cup of coffee in another courtyard house turned cafe. The architecture is classic Tripolitanian, while the coffee is a souvenir from Libya's Italian colonial years, which lasted from 1911 to 1943. Now, if you are in Tripoli, you'll want to visit an antique shop or two. The city has been a major Mediterranean crossroads for 2,500 years, and these shops are like living museums, packed with old and beautiful objects from across the region. By the way, if someone in Tripoli says "meet me at Santa Maria" or Mary Square, they mean this little square. It became the social center for Tripoli's Italian residents, home to a small church built in the 17th century and still holds mass to this day. Surrounding it are beautifully restored Ottoman Italian houses with wooden mashrabiyya balconies, cafes, an old Turkish prison, and the historic Banca di Roma. Step back from the square and the pattern becomes even clearer across the city. Tripoli still carries strong Italian influence, visible in its early colonial architecture, wide avenues, and European-style squares. A few minutes away is the Clock Tower, one of Tripoli's most famous landmarks. The 18-meter high tower was built during Ottoman rule and has survived revolutions, wars, and regime changes. Suddenly, we saw people pushing wheelbarrows of cash around. This turned out to be part of an informal money exchange market. So our guides helped us with changing our dollars, euros, and pounds. This was perfect timing, just as we were ready for some souvenir shopping. At the crafts market, you can find all kinds of knickknacks from fridge magnets to jewelry to handmade textiles. Most shops sell the usual items, but every now and then you hear rumors about something rare. People talk about Libyan Desert Glass, said to have formed after a meteorite impact 28 million years ago. They were once used by Egyptian royalty too. Someone found a shop that claimed to sell it, though we couldn't tell if it was real. By evening, we found ourselves at the heart of modern Tripoli, Martyr Square. Lined with palm trees, it has been at the center of Libya's recent history. Gaddafi, who ruled from 1969 to 2011, delivered many of his speeches from the balcony overlooking it. During the 2011 uprising, rebel fighters entered the square and tore down his green flags, marking the fall of his regime. Thousands died in the revolution, and bullet holes are still visible. These days, the square is lively, with families walking and kids riding bikes. Around it, you can spot Tripoli's public buses, which work a bit like a Latin American collectivo. For now, we return to our hotel for the night and our base for the next 4 days. After staying in places that were basic at best, Hotel Mahaba felt like 5 stars as far as we were concerned. The next day, we began at the Red Castle. Named for its red painted walls, it was built in the 16th century by the Spanish and later expanded by the Ottomans. Over the years, it has served as a harbour guard, palace, prison, and seat of power. We climbed the ramparts for panoramic views of the port, the souks, and the boulevards. There's also a museum, but our group skipped it, preferring to spend more time at our next stop 2 hours away. Leptis Magna is arguably the largest, best preserved, and emptiest major Roman city on the planet. With less than 2,000 visitors a year, our group was literally the only tourists there. It was first founded by the Phoenicians as a small trading post, growing into one of the richest cities in the Roman Empire. This is thanks almost entirely to its great harbour and olive oil trade. Eventually, earthquakes, attacks, and the harbour filling with sand slowly emptied Leptis Magna. It stayed buried under sand for centuries, which is why it still remains in good shape today. There are more than 500 hectares of streets with original marble and columns, along with a forum, amphitheatre, baths, markets, and even a harbour, all still standing at the original height. By evening, we were back in a Tripoli restaurant for dinner, slightly exhausted but excited for tomorrow. The next morning, we hit the road extra early. The drive today would be long, so our bus stopped along the road where locals sell tea, fruits, snacks, and boiled beans. One thing that struck us was how much trash sits along the roads. It's a reminder that even with all the oil wealth, the years of fighting and split governments pretty much destroyed the basic systems that used to keep Libya spotless. Our first stop was to the Nafusa mountains, the heartland of Libya's Berber population, the indigenous people of North Africa. They were here long before the Romans and even before the Phoenicians, and right in the middle of their territory is one of the coolest things they ever built. This is an ancient grain bank, invented about 1,000 years ago by the Berbers. Used to store food like barley, olive oil, dates, and figs, it was built as a collective food storage space for the surrounding villages. There are similar ones all across Berber North Africa, but this one is the best preserved. Later, we had an amazing lunch at a local Berber home. Lamb with couscous and lentil soup might sound simple, but it was really delicious. From here we drove to Tarmeisa, which looks like a cluster of stone walls on a hill. Only when you get closer do you realize it's a Berber ghost town. Abandoned around 50 years ago, we walked through the narrow passageways and explored the empty rooms. The highlight was looking out over the vast Sahel Al Jafara plain and watching a local effortlessly climb this rock with his bare hands. Not far from Tarmeisa, families once solved the mountain heat by digging their entire house underground. We dropped in literally to one of these pit houses, deep in the ground with rooms carved around an open courtyard. This unique design keeps the rooms cool in summer and warm in winter, which is pure genius. The house we visited was abandoned and is now a museum that gives you a glimpse into how these families live. With one of Africa's longest Mediterranean coastlines, seafood is a big part of everyday life in Libya. The best in Tripoli is said to be at Al Walima, where we had dinner that evening. We chose from a wide variety of seafood, and it was all fresh, succulent, and delicious. On our last day, we visited Sabratha, once a thriving Roman port city. Unlike Leptis Magna, which is massive and sprawling, Sabratha is smaller and easier to explore. Its ruins are said to be more beautiful too. Most open-air sites lose their mosaics over time, but Sabratha still has many in place, almost like they were left yesterday. This UNESCO heritage site is also home to the most picturesque Roman theatre on earth. The stage is backed by the turquoise sea, and it has 3 stories of magnificent marble columns still standing. Sitting on its steps is really quite a sight, and it's hard to put into words how surreal it feels to have the entire place to ourselves. After walking through the ruins, we thought we had seen everything. Then we reached the Temple of Isis, a 2nd century shrine sitting on a cliff on the beach. It looks like something out of a movie, with the ocean at its feet. After a leisurely lunch, our group made our way back to Tripoli. Some of us squeezed in a bit of a last day's shopping, picking up Libyan football jerseys before calling it a night. Most people never get a chance to visit Libya, so we felt incredibly lucky to see it up close. We did our trip through Young Pioneer Tours, since all tourist travel has to go through a licensed Libyan agency with a local guide. We were also required to have unarmed tourist police officers accompanying our group throughout the tour, and couldn't venture outside our hotel on our own. All this might sound intimidating, but the tour was really relaxed and we had many friendly and welcoming moments throughout. Just across the border, Tunisia shares a lot of Libya's history, but with a more stable recent past that shaped it in a completely different way, and we spent 2 days exploring its bustling capital, Tunis. Click here to watch our video now.